All right, in this part of the video, we're going to be do problems 19 through 36, and we're going to be focusing on actual data, entering data in the calculator and calculating outliers. Okay, so real quickly, I need to enter this data into my calculator, and let's just say, and here's what you need to do. Go to the home, we just press Stat. Edit should be highlighted, press enter. And now in my case, I have a ton of stuff in my columns. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to clear that out real quickly, just as a reminder. Arrow up, press clear, then press enter. And I can do that on all the columns if I want to. I'm just gonna do it clear, arrow up, clear, then enter. And now I have nice clean columns. And I'm going to need to go back and enter the data. I've already done that. So I have all my data entered into column L1. All right. So once I have my data in there, I'm going to press second quit, clear to make sure I have a nice blank screen. And I'm going to press stat, arrow one space over to calc, one variable statistics. And I don't know what your column may say, but I'm going to press second followed by the number 1, so to make sure that it says L1. Press clear here. We want the frequency list. We want your freq turned off. And we're going to press calculate. Now we have the information that we're looking for. All right. So we have 91.85, and they're asking for our mean. Number 20 asks for the standard deviation of the population. So I'm just going to go ahead and round to 4 places. So 12.0759. 21, the minimum. I don't see the minimum. 21 says N, which happens to be 20. 22 is the minimum, which was 75. I just down arrowed. A down arrow again, and I see Q1, 23, which is the first quartile, and that is 82.5. The median, or the middle number, is 90. Q3 happens to be 100. And the data max, the largest value in the data set, is 120. All right, so I have that part done. Then it asks, 27 asks me for Q3 minus Q1. All right, well, we already said that Q3 was 120 minus, in this case, 82.5. So our answer should be 17.5. Wow, that's not right. This is not 120. This is 100. Be careful with that. Don't fall into the trap that I just did. Because this was Q1, this was Q3. So 100 minus 82.5. Now I'm just going to check it out real quickly on the calculator. Not feeling too bright this morning. Sorry. So is 100 minus 82.5 is 17.5. Awesome. And the next one says for 28 to 32, list in least to greatest order the values that make up the 5-number summary. All right. Well, stat, calc, 1var stat. And the minimum, that's my least. It's really nice, the calculator lists it this way for us. The next value, 82.5. The next value, 90. The next value, 100. And the next value, 120. All right, so that's our 5-number summary. All right, now the focus on outliers. And this may be a little more challenging. but I believe we can do all this. So the number of typhoons reaching the west coast of the United States was recorded for each of the last 10 decades. Summary measures are shown below. Determine whether or not there are outliers using the IQR method. Okay, so they're telling me they want to do use the IQR method, so I need to calculate IQR. IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So what is my Q3? Oh, this is Q3 at 19. And Q1, my lower quartile, is 15. So IQR in this case is 4. All right. So I need to determine whether or not there are outliers and on the low side and high side. So I'm going to start with my lower fence, which has this formula, Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. Anything less than this value, anything less is an outlier. So what was Q1? 15 minus 1.5. And our IQR, we already calculated it was 4. So when I subtract this, when I put this in a calculator, I end up getting 9. So if X is less than 9, there's an outlier on the low side. But what we see is it's equal. If it's on the fence, it's not an outlier. And we have no values less than 9, so no low. I'm going to write no low for no low outside outliers, all right? Now we need to worry about the high side. Our high side is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 IQR, all right? Well, Q3, we already said was 19. They gave that to us. And when I do my math for this, 1.5 times 4 is 6. 19 plus 6 is 25. And X has to be greater than 25. Well, we're on the fence again. We don't have a max value greater than 25. If we had 25.01, we would have an outlier. But since it's the same, we have no on the high side, no high side outliers. All right, so that's for 33. We have no low and no high. On number 34, the number of typhoons, again, we have the same typhoon question. We just changed the numbers around. And we have 16 and 18. So once again, IQR, the formula, Q3 minus Q1. So in this case, 18 minus 16. So our IQR is 2. So we need to calculate low side outliers, Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. So 16 minus 1.5 times 2. 1.5 times 2 is 3. 16 minus 3 is 13. So X has to be less than 13. Our minimum value is 13, so no low. All right, because remember, if it's on the fence, there's not an outlier. If there had been a 12.9, it would have been an outlier, but since it's 13, that's our smallest. Our minimum value is that. We have no outliers on the low side. So now we need to do the high side outlier, which is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. So here we have 18 plus 1.5 times 2. 1.5 times 2 is 3. 18 plus 3 is 21. So we need, are there any X values greater than 21? We see that our max is 24. That's greater than 21. So we do have yes on high side. No on the low side, yes on the high side. All right, so now we have a random sample of golf scores given the following summary statistics. I'll come back to those values in a moment. Determine whether or not there are outliers using IQR. So to do that, I'm going to need Q1, I'm going to need Q3, and then we're going to need to compare to the max and compare to the min to determine whether or not there are any outliers. Okay, so first off, we need to calculate our IQR. IQR equals Q3 minus Q1. In this case, that's 91 minus 78, and that is 13. So our IQR equals 13. All right, continuing on. So I need to do the low side. Check the low side out, and the low side formula is Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. So in this case, 78 minus 1.5 times 13. And so if I have an X less than 58.5, then I have an outlier. Well, my minimum value is 58. It's less than 58.5. So yes, I have an outlier on the low side. All right, yes, I have an outlier on the low side, and I have an outlier on the low side because 58 is less than 58.5. So that's the low side. On the high side, our formula is going to be Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. Q3 is 91. We already said our IQR happens to be 13. So 91 plus 1.5 times 13 is 110.5. So if X is greater than 110.5, then we have an outlier on the high side. Well, look, this is 112. 112 is greater than this. So I have a value on the high side that's bigger than this. So yes, on the high side. So in this case, I have outliers on both the high and outliers on the low. All right, use the table below to determine which numbers are outliers. Okay, so, I have the 5 smallest values, and then I have Q1, Q3, and the 5 highest values. Well, I know to calculate outliers, I need Q1 and Q3 and do the IQR. So let's start with that. So IQR equals Q3 minus Q1. So in this case, 18 minus 14, our IQR happens to be 4. So let's do the low side outliers first. Low side, Q1 minus 1.5 IQR, that's our formula. Q1 is 14 minus 1.5 times 4. 1.5 times 4 is 6. 14 minus 6 is 8. All right. So if we have any values less than 8, they're outliers. So that means, in this case, I have 3 on the low. All right, I have 3 outliers on the low side. On the high side, we need to do that calculation. So our formula is Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. So 18 plus 1.5, our IQR that we already calculated over here was 4. 1.5 times 4 is 6. 18 plus 6 is 24. If it's on the fence, it's not an outlier. So over here we have, oh, so x greater than 24. So in this case, we have 4 on the high. All right, I believe that is it for this part of the video, and we'll make another one for interpreting graphs.